Hello, assalamu alaikum, Sidrah, namaste. Hello, my name is Farheen Khan and you're watching the Azeeza show. Today, we're actually going to talk about a very interesting topic, and the topic is to wear hijab or not. It's quite an interesting discussion, and I'm looking forward to having this discussion with my guests. So Naoma Khan, Mariam, Malik, and Sidrah Misbah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Farheen.
My pleasure. So I want to sort of jump right into this and have the discussion about, let's start with sort of the first part of this conversation, which is basically, often people consider hijab to be a sign of modesty. It's something that's very, revered in a lot of communities. What do you think? Is it, and often people consider it to be something that's very mandatory for women to wear. What's your perspective on that?
I'll keep the backstory for later, but
Sure.
Definitely hijab is a revered thing in our religion, and it's a sign of modesty not only in Islam but in most cultures actually. And yes, it's also becoming a trend as I see it, and religious point of view, because I've had an experience myself before. I used to wear it. I took it voluntarily, not even with anybody's force or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have now a very interesting perspective to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, what do you think?
Okay, so I believe that, as a Muslim that wears it and someone that didn't wear it before, it was my choice to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
When I got closer to the faith, I came across both perspectives. Like, it's mandatory, or it is, the majority is that it's mandatory, but at the same time, you're not told and you're not forced to wear it. So when they say it's mandatory, just like everything else that we have in Islam, we're not perfect Muslims, we're just getting there. So hijab is also one of the things that if you're not doing, you shouldn't be labeled as someone that's lesser than someone that doesn't wear the hijab. So yes, it's, majority of scholars do say it's mandatory, but at the same time, we shouldn't jump to conclusions that we are shaming others for not wearing it.
Right. Okay. What do you think?
I agree with Naoma and Mariam both together.
Right.
It is, from what I understand, it is mandatory.
Okay.
However, again, it's a covenant between you and Allah or your God.
Mm-hmm.
So you should not be forced to wear it. It's
Right.
entirely, it's your decision. And just like Naoma said, it is becoming more of a fashion statement and a trend, which can offset the required modesty. So you have to really balance it, where you want to look nice, you want to look great and keep up with the trends, but is that allowing you to remain modest?
Right.
So.
And what do you say to people who, I think over time my perspective has changed a little bit on this. So I think when I was younger, I had a really strong sort of, upbringing within sort of the mosque community and stuff,
Right.
context, and it was like, well, you absolutely have to. And it was sort of and I don't think that was something that, like, as a child, I started wearing it first because I went to like this, halakha, or like gathering of women, and heard about it, right? And then my mom and my older sister started to wear it after that, because they were like, well, if she's starting to wear it at 10, we should too, right? But at the time, it was like very much, this whole notion of like, well, you're pleasing God, and this is why, this is how you're going to get to heaven, right? Or Jannah, or whatever. And I think over time it's changed, because I feel like part of it's also that, I know I wear it still because I feel I'm spiritually connected because of it. It keeps me more mindful of sort of what I'm doing and how I represent myself in the community and stuff like that. But I think also it's become a lot more political for me, because after 9/11, I experienced an attack, and like just being able to kind of be that quote, obviously we can't speak for everyone, but just be able to say, if somebody meets me and sees me as being quote, a normal person, and I'm wearing a hijab, then hopefully I'm doing a little bit of education as I go along, right? So that's been like sort of my perspective on that. So what do you say though to women who, there are a lot of women that I know, and I don't know if you share this or not, but there's women that I've heard, and I know personally, who've sort of taken it off because they've said, well, here in the West it's a choice, but in other parts of the world it's actually being, forced on women. So is it truly, a choice, or are we actually wearing it in such a way that it represents something that's a tool of oppression for women elsewhere? What do you say to that?
Definitely, it's this is also true that it's also become an oppression sign, and it's also true that people do wear it with humility too, right? For the spiritual reasons. So I would definitely say that because my adherence to hijab was very religious reasons. So if I can start with so at the age of 17, okay, I come from a more culturally orthodox family than a more religious one.
Right.
And at the time growing during the 80s, there were not many people in actually the hijab scarves that we see today.
Right.
Because raising up in India, it was mostly because you see all the other religions also, they also are wearing, the women are wearing with saris, the women are wearing with ghagras, the women like who are wearing the Pakistani attire, they are also covering their head. So it was never, the black abaya was never even seen, or even forget about the scarves. My mom wore it, but she would also take it off in functions, in parties or something like that. It was not like how today we like would jump, somebody would just see one hair of us. That kind of a thing was never there. It was part of the culture of every culture. In fact, in my building, I would see more Hindus covering than that there were Muslims who were covering. So it was never a push from my parents. My parents raised me actually very modern. I would go and actually celebrate all different kind of religious festivals, dance, sing. All this was part of my life until I started going to halaqas. When I started going to Islamic halaqas, it was not just one halaqa. I had become like a fanatic in getting knowledge. All of a sudden I changed. I saw girls of my age wearing niqab. The very second day they started going to halaqas. Not saying that this is the right way of doing, but this is how the trend during the mid-90s happened in India. I think it might be a little bit because of the Mumbai bomb blast, because after that, like how you had the 9/11 in Bombay, we had the Bombay bomb blast, and after that, you know, the identity part started again. But yeah, I smile now is because of the things that today I would tell others. I was exactly like that. I was a fanatic. I would go to every religious class happening in the town, be it even the sects of different Sunni, just to get an understanding of what's the truth. I never missed anything. Like even Dr. Zakir Naik, I would go to all his sessions. I have done all his sessions. Big fan of his, like that time, not now anymore. So from wearing a normal dupatta on the head to slowly, gradually going to a pin-up and then going to a chadra, I have done it all. Then to an abaya, then to a niqab. For certain places, I used to wear even a niqab. So after doing everything, digging into books, doing the Quranic tafsir, all the classes that you can think about in the Islamic and Muslim religious scenes in India, there was still something that I couldn't understand. There was still an inequality that I always saw. Because myself going through those inequalities back as a woman, as a wife, as the backstory you know, I used to question. I said, why is everything revolved around the men? Why are all the decisions taking around the men? Why are the men exempted from doing such an important thing which is regarded as mandatory for women? Right? Allah says, lower your gaze, and it's for both. So if Allah was so clear about only lowering the gaze, that means Allah knew that this whole world will be filled with different cultures of women, different culture of people, but it's on you not to troll. Lower your gaze, I just completely feel it's like trolling. You keep yourself eyes away. If you don't like that woman wearing something, keep your eyes away. That's what Allah is saying. But what did we do? We changed the meaning into material. Anything that Allah gave as a metaphor, we changed it into the physical meaning. Like daraba, Allah said, and Allah says strike means to cut away. Cut away means to keep your distance, like keep away. Like how you gonna strike like that. But what did we do? Physical beating again. So most of these meanings, when I went into the in-depth understanding of this, with the help of different kind of religious scholars also, I was clear. And once this whole game is of guilt, you have to understand. Oh, you don't cover, you're not a good woman. Oh, you don't do this, you are the reason why men will go into fire. This is all the time that we do. So a woman wearing a hijab or covering herself is like, for a man, he's so weak that he cannot resist and he can actually fall prey into sin. Oh, then that's the problem. There lies the problem, not with the woman covering. So these were the questions that I kept asking. Though I enjoyed, let me tell you also the fact that there was a very interesting episode when I started wearing the hijab and started going to college. So my friends used to ask me, why are you wearing this now all of a sudden? I said, so I don't look very attractive, you know. He's like, are you kidding? You're looking more attractive now.
You attract more attention.
Yeah.
You look different than others.
Exactly. So if you're in a place where everybody is wearing, you would look just the same. You mean nobody would even pick on you.
Right.
But if I'm going to wear somewhere here or in a place where the Hindus are majority, I would be seen popping out.
Yeah.
So the whole cause of actually having the privacy is gone.
Yeah.
So you are there all along. You are there in the spotlight actually.
All the time. Yeah.
So these questions, obviously, knowing that we are so strong, the influence of culture is so strong that you just cannot take it away, and nobody is saying you take it away. What we are just asking is to not play the guilt game. Do not interfere God. Like, don't get in God in this. Wear whatever you want to wear. If I have my right to say that this does not belong in the religion and I'm not going to support it, but I will fight till the end for your right to wear it.
Absolutely.
Because this is, again, if somebody is forcing you to remove your clothes, that's as evil as somebody telling you to wear what you want to wear.
For sure, I hear you. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. So what do you think, Mariam? You wear it?
I do wear it.
Okay, and why is this important to you?
So for me, I wasn't a practicing Muslim my whole life. So during middle school, high school, I never wore hijab. I wasn't, I didn't know anything about the faith really. I grew up in a very non-Muslim environment, and the only influence I had was at home, and even my family is culturally Orthodox, right? So they're not really practicing Muslims, or they weren't at that time. Now it's a bit more, they know more, right? And then I ended up getting sick, and that brought me closer to wanting to learn about my religion. But then even then, it didn't happen all of a sudden.
Right.
It took years. Nothing happens overnight. So when you say you want to practice, nothing happens overnight. And then
I'm going to stop you there. Sorry. We're just going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. All right. We'll be back right after this. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Azeeza show. I'm just talking about, we were just talking to Mariam about the issue of hijab. So you said.
Yeah, so I started, so I wanted to learn more about it when I was around 19 years old.
Okay.
And, slowly wanting to learn that, I've been told I'm a Muslim, but I don't practice it. So what makes me a Muslim? Like, what is my definition just because my parents are Muslim? So that kind of got me thinking about, okay, I'm born into a Muslim family, but I need to be doing things that make me more, actually practice, right? Or else I shouldn't be calling myself that. That's hypocritical, right? To me anyways, at that time, that's what I thought. And then, over the years, I slowly looked into everything, and then we moved back to Toronto, so that whole influence of like the community that I never had, that actually helped, being around people that did practice, or, they didn't wear hijab, but they practiced, right? And then, I went through something personal in my life with people, and that just kind of made me want to get closer to God more, because I felt like I wasn't able to trust anyone else. And I think that just pushed me more towards the faith. And hijab just came naturally. It just happened all of a sudden. I wasn't forced. My parents, like, no one in my family wears it. My mom doesn't, my sisters don't. It was something that I wanted to wear because I felt liberated wearing it. I felt free wearing it. I felt that I wasn't going to fit into, like, I wasn't conform into society's norms of what a hijab, like, or like what I should be doing. So that's why I wore it, and it's been 6 years now, almost 7.
Okay.
And there's times where you have to constantly remind yourself why you wear it, right? With all the political struggle going, and it's kind of, as you alluded to earlier, it is a form of, it's kind of a form of resistance too now, because there's just so much Islamophobia going on. For sure. Right? And when you wear it, you're like, I'm standing up for this. I'm standing up for people that wear it, that people that don't wear it, but I'm a physical representation of this faith.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And it's a strong, strong feeling. So, I mean, that's exactly how I came to wear it.
Wonderful. Yeah. That's great. So Sidrah, you don't wear it. So, not that we're telling you should, but tell us what do you think in terms of wearing it? Do you think people can still be modest and practicing without wearing it?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay.
Although I don't wear it it still allows me to continue practicing my faith. Modesty is only one aspect of faith from what I've learned and what I see. I feel like you need to be modest in a lot of other aspects of life.
Absolutely.
Your thoughts, your lifestyle, your process, your dealings with others, and you know, what have you. So just covering is one part of it, and although I may not cover it, it's compared the two of us together, I may not be as covered, but it shouldn't make me less of a Muslim or less of a good Muslim.
You might be a better Muslim than I am.
Right? Like it could be something good that I do that I may be rewarded for, which you don't do.
Yes.
Or vice versa. You know, anything of that sort. So I definitely think, yes, you can be a practicing Muslim without wearing a hijab. And don't get me wrong, it is required, so it is something you can look into, and it's something I may want to do down the road when I'm ready, when I'm like, I think something I want to look into and do more of my research and know when I'm ready. It's something I wouldn't want to put on and then take off because I can't deal with the pressure of the society.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
just to
think-
stay away from that. It's like when I'm ready and I'm ready to commit to that, I will willingly want to put it on one day.
Right.
I think I wanted to add something to that. It's like, people think that, oh, when someone wears a hijab, they're born with a hijab, right? It's just they do it when they're so young and stuff. But there's a journey. Like I said, my journey was, I was practicing before I put it on, but I put it on for a reason, right? But like a lot of times people end up, the society ends up comparing the two, right? They're like, okay, because she wears a physical representation, that all of a sudden she's this perfect image of what Islam should be, and they judge based on that, which is
within
obviously
the community.
within
Outside, it's a whole different
exactly
story.
right.
Yeah.
But within the community, that's still something we have to work on, because that's
Right.
not it, right? You're judging someone by their physical appearance, lack of or wearing, right?
And society actually doesn't stop at that.
Exactly, they go further.
Society, even if you are wearing, I've been in the society,
still
I've
still
been there.
scrutinize you, right?
They will still, if you're wearing, how
Yeah.
tight is your hijab? How tight is your
or
clothes?
like your
Are you
hair is
wearing
showing,
a
or
makeup with that hijab?
Yeah.
Then if everything also is good, then they'll find the human.
They'll find that.
They
they'll
need
find
to.
that
They
one.
need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, so at the end,
Yeah,
I think even what beauty stands for everybody is so different.
exactly.
You know, specifically, I would say the value of beauty.
Right.
Why doesn't anybody accept the fact that everybody should be feeling beautiful for themselves?
Exactly.
Right.
Not
But
for anybody
in
else.
our community, we have, oh, the woman has to beautify only for the husband. Oh my God, there are so many women without husband.
Right. Then what?
Then what?
Why
Means
can't-
she should
yeah.
she should
Yeah,
stay like a
because she
drag or
still
something?
should feel better, right? Good about
What is
herself.
this?
Yeah.
This kind of demotivation, and see, these are not very minute things. These are part of the explanation that people give from the deen. This is not something that's happening, it's a social or it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing given as the dose from God.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, a lot
So
of it. Yeah.
that goes all around and comes up to a point where it's also being put now to smaller girls, thinking that, okay, let's then start advocating it from a very small age so that it stays in a habit,
Right.
so that they stay under the cover right from the beginning.
A lot of misinterpretation.
And
It
I think
is.
the issue really is the mindset of our community.
Yeah.
Like, although we moved to the West or the Europe or where have you in the world, it's still the same baggage we're carrying.
Yeah,
It's not changing. It's not going to change unless someone decides to stand up and say, it's okay, let it be.
In fact, when they come to West, they run all the more to conserve their
Conserve,
cultures.
yeah,
They feel
yes.
that they're going to lose this, so let's get it like first outwardly.
Exactly.
Then we'll do the other things. Because you see, most of the cultural practice here. I'm a videographer. I do weddings. I see that they might be the most modern people outside, but when it comes to celebrating cultures, our culture, Desi culture, is like on the top, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so
Right.
it's all about saving your culture, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because cultural things don't always come with the pressure, with coercion, with force. They used to, but now everybody enjoys it.
Right.
But when it comes with the tag mark of God, then it comes with coercion, fear,
Yeah.
guilt,
That's exactly right.
Pressure. So why do you think women actually continue to wear it? I can speak for like my experience, right? Like you mentioned Mariam, earlier, the issue with Islamophobia and the amount of sort of negative, divisive politics and that sort of hateful rhetoric that keeps coming up, right? I remember when I ran in for political office in 2015, like the amount of, at the time, like we were hearing it from our own prime minister, right? So, I remember how difficult it was being like the only hijabi that ran at that time, through the 11-week campaign and having to stand, again and again having to stand, you know, in front of media and answer questions to say, you know, I am who I am. Like, I don't, you know, I'm not who you see on that TV screen, right? Like, I'm actually an actual normal human being. And when you speak to me, right, you're speaking to, you know, quote, a political candidate who's running for office in Canadian society. And a lot of times I would walk into places like, I'll never forget, like, you know, I always talk about the positive because I also didn't want to feed into this notion of like all Canadians hate Muslims, which is not true. I think had I done that, I probably would have gotten more media exposure. But to tell you the truth, there was media all around with me all the time. They were always following me to see like what's the reaction of the
courageous people. This is like just to be around media all the time and keep yourself.
And they'd stand in front of the door, right? Like Global News and all these things, and they'd watch, right? Like, what is the reaction? And people would talk to me totally normally, right? And then they would be like, you could see like their, you know, their gears are like turning in their mind. Oh my God, she speaks English. Oh my God, she like understands what I'm talking about, right? Like she understands me. And when the experience was positive, they wouldn't air the stories. That was the big issue.
It's the negative ones that they pick and choose.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So a lot of that was like, you know, when I actually got to meet people face to face, it was clear that, you know, what people, you know, unfortunately, it's just that sort of stereotypical quote Muslim, right, and the oppressed woman and all that type of stuff was actually very false. You know, so, but like for me, my conviction was that like, you know, I was clear because I was like, no, you know what, if my only job in this election is to make sure that, you know, every person in my riding, or as many people as I can talk to, you know, realize that I'm just a normal person, right? And I happen to be wearing a hijab, then, you know, perhaps I'm doing a service to my community. But why do you think other women, like we hear about it all the time, right? It looks like there are women who might take it off, and there are other women who might put it on. There are some who are just, you know, consistent even despite all of this. So what do you guys think? What do you think is like, you know, the motivation for people to, like, why would you continue to wear it, Mariam, even though it's so difficult?
I think for me, the reason I still wear it is because I constantly remind myself of why I wear it. So if I ever take it off, it is either my insecurity, or it's either because I don't believe it anymore, or it's either because I fell into someone saying that, you know, it's, you know, people's, you fall into what people say, right? You listen to that. So, and you know, God wouldn't be the reason I take it off. Right. So I constantly remind myself that I put it on for the sake of God. So if I'm taking it off, it's not for God, it's for a human being or something that He created. And that itself is just lowering what it actually means to wear a hijab, right? So that's my motivation to keep it on. And also I think now, that's my main reason, but now because of the socio-political aspect of it as well, it's more of, you know, it's like you're fighting against Islamophobia. You're standing up for this faith. You're standing up for people of like every part of this faith, people that wear it, that don't wear it, right? So you're that. So it's a sign. It's a sign as well. So it's a political sign as well. So that's one of the other reasons that now it's more of a motivation for me to keep it on, right? As a form of strength, as a form of, you know, I'm here for you.
Like Iran, it's become more a political form of removing the hijab has become now a political identity.
Yes,
exactly.
Some places
because there it is enforced.
So
I think it's really our duty now to really look into this fact. Like we over here in Canada or in a Western country wear it in a beautiful weather,
pride, right?
And pride with makeup and the best of clothes. Go back to the countries where the Muslim population is the highest, and you'll see how women in that dirt, in that heat, are forced to wear black abayas, and they're sweating, and they're like panting, they're like in that worst condition. Those are the real hijabis. Those are the ones who are actually struggling to keep their identity in a place where they are being abused. Maybe some didn't even want to wear. I knew I had a house help. You should say, oh, you know, what can I do? Like, you know, if I don't wear it, the area where I'm staying, they'll think I'm a bad woman. So just to keep that thing, she used to wear that such a thick black thing with the whole thing covered on her face and all that. That's inhuman. We are blessed here. We are staying in a Western, or even the fact that I've stayed in Dubai for 5 years, car to carpet, that's their lifestyle. And we think, oh wow, that's so glamorous. Wow, women with those black sheilas and beautiful makeup and all that, and we want to ape that. What about the women who are struggling to get out of that? There are more women today in this time of the world who want to get out of this because there was always enforced into it.
For sure. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate this. We've actually run out of time, but I want to just say thank you to all of you for being on the show and for having this conversation.
Thank you.
I wish we had more time to continue having this discussion, but I'll definitely see you next week.
Thank you
Until
so
then,
much.
take care. Thank you.
Thank you.